Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Alberto Pimentel Jr., and today we'll be discussing attraction and love, binding forces. So I want you to think about the concept of physical attractiveness. What does physical attractiveness mean to you? Who do you find physically attractive? What physical characteristics are you attracted to? When we talk about a physical attractiveness, we have to understand that it is a key factor when considering a potential romantic or sexual partner. And when we use the term attractiveness or attraction, it's essentially what are the forces, the factors that draw people together. And we'll discuss this more in a little bit. Let's tackle this concept of, is beauty in the eye of the beholder? Essentially, what we're talking about here is beauty is relative to an individual's interpretation. What you may deem beautiful, what you may deem physically attractive, may differ from what other individuals view or perceive to be as beautiful or attractive. And what we want to understand is that physical attractiveness may be impacted by cultural standards. And those cultural standards are going to vary from one individual to the next. And I've included two very short YouTube videos that tackle cultural standards in relation to physical attractiveness. And I encourage you, please take a few minutes and watch both of those videos. But what we want to understand is that when we're interpreting physical attractiveness or beauty, there's really no clear answer. Because beauty is defined through the socialization process, the development of self, the development that comes as a result of life experiences and interactions with others. Think about how your concept of beauty, your concept or understanding of physical attractiveness has been influenced by images that you see produced by the media, by significant others, and what they have taught you to value. Think about the impact of cultural expectations and societal expectations and how those influence your interpretation of beauty and physical attractiveness. Let's go a step further. How do we define physical attractiveness? Well, according to Hatfield and Sprecher in 1986, physical attractiveness can be defined as that which represents one's conception of the ideal in appearance, that which gives the greatest degree of pleasure to the senses. Think about how you feel when you're physically attracted to someone. Maybe you don't even know that person, but you took a glance at them. Maybe you made eye contact with them and quickly lost that eye contact because you didn't want to get caught staring. Think about if that person was to approach you. How do you feel? How does your body and your mind respond to a physically attractive person standing in front of you? In human sexuality, we can conduct studies where we can look at the pupil of the eye in response to images that are deemed to be physically attractive. And that's pretty cool. The idea that we respond differently to individuals based on our interpretation of physical attractiveness. And think about how we begin to interpret that. Think about the impact of life experiences. And what I mean by that is, think about who you've been exposed to. Perhaps you grew up in a community that was predominantly one particular race or ethnicity. And for most of your life, you didn't have access to television or the internet. You didn't really leave that community. So your understanding of beauty was in relation to who and what you saw on a daily basis. But then you go to college or you move out of your community and you're exposed to diversity, to diverse groups of individuals. Think about how your understanding of physical attractiveness and what qualifies as beauty or physical attractiveness may evolve. Your understanding of that concept may change. Now, I want you to also think about what physical factors or traits influence you to find someone attractive. I wanted to provide a little insight into my understanding of physical attractiveness or who I deemed to be physically attractive. If you've taken my class before, in person that is, you know I had the biggest crush on Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, aka AOC. I have a huge crush on actress Jessica Chastain. Why? Well, I find myself attracted to women who have red hair. And I find myself attracted to women with large noses. Now, that's not a sexual fetish of any kind. I can't explain my attraction to large noses. It just happens. And my ultimate crush for so many years, Halle Berry. I want you to think about who your crushes are. Maybe it's your current significant other. Maybe, like me, you have some celebrity crushes, right? That are shared publicly or perhaps privately. I want us to think about this concept of beauty is skin deep. Attraction runs deeper. Essentially, what we're saying is beauty and physical attractiveness, well, that's superficial. If we want to develop a real understanding of attraction, we need to look at the non-physical traits. So let's tackle this sociological and psychological concept of the halo effect. The halo effect essentially says that we evaluate people in a more positive manner when they're more attractive, that we tend to associate positive qualities with an individual who is more physically attractive. Let's go a step further. We've been conditioned to assume at times that physically attractive individuals possess a host of positive qualities in areas such as trustworthiness, intelligence, and honesty. Now, this is a myth. This is inaccurate. This is a stereotypical belief. Attractive and good-looking people do not possess more favorable traits than people who are deemed unattractive. There is no evidence to support this concept that attractive people equals, or an attractive person equals better traits, and an unattractive person equals lesser or worse traits. No scientific data to support that conclusion. The value of non-physical traits is relative, once again, to our interpretation, to our experience, to our socialization. An individual's attractiveness or beauty can be enhanced by a variety of factors that include familiarity, intelligence, having a mutual liking for one another, showing respect to one another, even having common values and goals, regardless of whether or not an individual is deemed to be physically attractive. Now, as you reflect on the non-physical traits that attract you to someone, don't filter yourself. What factors or traits immediately come to mind? Based on my own personal assessment, I'm attracted to females who are self-motivated, intelligent, trustworthy, caring, independent, selfless, and committed. One of my favorite hip hop artists is Nas. And if you've taken some of my classes before, you know that I frequently quote some of my favorite hip hop artists' lyrics. And in the song Cherry Wine, featuring the vocals of Amy Winehouse, rest in peace, Nas raps, "I want a girl so real, who not after material wealth, but who gets dough still. Or maybe an educator, a lady with etiquette, who can be from out the hood, or even work for the president. As long as there's no selfishness, yes. As long as her love for the people is deep-rooted and evident." I mentioned in my initial assessment that I'm attracted to women who are selfless, individuals who understand that there are others in the world besides her, and is committed to empowering and helping others. That commitment to those factors is incredibly attractive to me. Hence my crush on AOC. Now think about attraction similarity hypothesis. And what this hypothesis states is that people tend to develop a romantic relationship with people who are similar to themselves in factors such as physical attractiveness, perhaps cultural background, possessing certain personality traits, and even interest. We may find that we're attracted to an individual for a variety of reasons, and once again, those reasons we may not be able to explain. And that's totally fine. We shouldn't feel obligated to justify our attraction to someone, because it is relative to our experience, it is relative to our life. We may also find ourselves attracted to individuals of a similar ethnicity, a similar age group, individuals who possess a similar education level, or who practice a similar faith. Let's look at the concept of gender roles and its impact on attractiveness. Gender role perceptions may affect our attractiveness to someone. If you don't recall what gender role perceptions are, or what gender roles are, essentially those culturally and socially defined roles that are forced upon men and women, that we may be socialized into adopting. The idea that men are supposed to be rough, men are supposed to have this desire to build and explore, men are not supposed to show emotions, and that women are supposed to be emotional and caring and nurturing. Well, those are gender role stereotypes. Not all women subscribe to that, and not all men subscribe to that. I would argue in reality, we're a mixture of all those factors, regardless of your gender or sex. In fact, for some of us, we may view breaking gender roles as being stimulating, exciting, attractive, while others might find individuals who follow a strict interpretation of gender roles as being more attractive. It varies from individual to individual. Think about a person's name. A person's name can impact our perception of attractiveness. Doesn't that sound a bit silly? a person's name, something they had no control over. Well, according to an article in Business Insider, and this is not a scientifically written article, the article is titled, "These are the 15 hottest names for men and women in the United States," on how swiped right they are. They used a social media dating or hooking up app to conduct this non-scientific study. And they found that the most commonly swiped names to the right for females were Brianna, Erica, and Lexi. And the three hottest names for males swiped right were Brett, Tyler, and Corey. Now, once again, in research, we wouldn't accept this data. The validity of data is flawed. So it's non-scientific, but I thought I'd just throw it in there just for entertainment purposes. Now, think about the importance of physical attractiveness on long-term relationships. What we tend to find is that physical attractiveness is not necessarily the most important quality for a long-lasting relationship. In fact, physical attractiveness tends to be the most important factor for a relationship that is purely sexual. What we find is for a successful relationship, non-physical traits tend to carry more importance. And according to research on relationships, heterosexual females tend to seek partners who possess the following qualities: intelligence, stability, their vocational status, their earning potential, a person's expressiveness. How kind are they? How considerate are they? And how dependable are they? Now, this is not set in stone. This can vary. Not all heterosexual females value these traits in a particular or a potential partner. Now, think about for men and what research tells us men are looking for. And this is going to sound incredibly superficial. Youth, physical attractiveness, cooking ability, frugality. Is that what all men are looking for? All heterosexual men? The answer is no. We can actually have a mixture of both among the genders or sexes. Now, you notice that I said heterosexual men, heterosexual women. And the reason for that is there's not a whole lot of research out there on the homosexual community. Although the homosexual community research has grown over the years, a majority of the research focuses on heterosexuality because we live in what we call a heteronormative society, and tends to focus on heterosexual men. It illustrates the prejudice, the sexism that exists even within sex research. So who's right for you? I think that's $1 million question. Maybe some of us have found Mr. or Mrs. Right. Maybe some of us have been searching endlessly and perhaps have given up hope. I wish I can give you this magic formula, provide you with a magic wand to find the right person for you, but it's not that easy. In fact, I really don't have an answer for you because it depends on who or what you're attracted to, what factors or traits you value. When we think about popular media often portrays this concept of opposites attract. Okay, that may be true for some, because there are exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, what we find is that opposites do not attract long-term. In fact, in the early stages of a relationship, being the complete opposite may appear to be fine. It may appear to be exciting and adventurous, and wow, this is such a mystery. But as time passes, the differences may become more evident. Someone that's the opposite of you, well, that might become an annoyance. But what happens if you meet someone who's identical to you? Well, it can either be a recipe for success in the sense that You have a smooth relationship, a drama-free relationship, or a recipe for disaster. The person's too predictable. The relationship can become too boring. And sometimes we need a little mystery. For the most part, we look for partners that are similar but not identical. We also find that we may be attracted to individuals who are near us. And what I mean by that typically is in our early years. When we have limited access to transportation, we're dating individuals within our neighborhoods, within our immediate area. Now, that sense changed with technological advancements, right? Once we get our driver's license and we have access to a car, we can drive 15 to 20 miles to meet a partner. But the reason why we might want to date someone who's near us, and I put near us in quotations because that's relative to your interpretation, is that perhaps we have a similar social and cultural environment. We speak the same lingo. We know the same spots to go hang out. We're familiar with the environment. And what we find at times is that women tend to focus on similarity as a much more important factor than men. But that doesn't necessarily always hold true, right? Men can say similarity is very important to me as well. Then we look at the importance of reciprocity, the mutual exchange of behaviors and feelings. One of the most important factors in attraction. Our ability to effectively reciprocate words and actions, right? I give, you give. I receive, you receive. Achieving equity and equality in relationship is a tremendous, tremendous feat for that relationship. It's one of the key factors of having an enduring and long-lasting relationship. Because what happens in a relationship that is built on the foundation of reciprocity is that it can take mild feelings and allow them to develop or evolve into very strong feelings of attraction. And when it does that, we have love. Now, how would you define love? Butterflies in your stomach when you think of that person or you see that person? Perhaps you become sexually aroused or sexually excited. Maybe you start experiencing these physiological, biological changes within your body. Maybe now you have a smile on your face. When we talk about love, specifically romantic love, it's this intense attraction that involves the idolization of the other within an erotic context, with the expectation of an enduring relationship in the future, having that hope that this is going to elevate us to a whole new level, that's going to lead us to a committed long-term relationship or even marriage. In Western culture, think about how we idolize romantic love. In the United States, we are in love with love. We may foolishly at times believe that love or romantic love is a prerequisite for marriage. That could be true in some cases, but not all. Because I'm sure we've come across individuals who may not be in love, but who get married anyway because, well, we've been together, might as well. It's the right thing to do. And when we think about this idolizing of love, think about all the movies that are out there. The Vow, The Notebook, A Walk to Remember. And as you're watching A Walk to Remember, you're trying to not shed those tears. And if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend watching it. Think about how romantic love has the highs and lows. When we're on our high end of romantic love, life is great. We're floating in clouds. We look at that individual and our heart just melts. But think about the low part of romantic love, the heartache, the physical turmoil. Think about what the low end of romantic love does to your emotional and psychological states. I mentioned before biological mechanisms, how our body begins to change when we experience feelings of love. Our brain chemistry stimulates the pleasure center. Our brain goes nuts when we're in love. Our hormones stimulate physiological responses. We experience heightened levels of nerve growth, factors that increase awareness. Now, the touch of your partner does something to you. Their voice does something to you. Now everyone's looking at you saying, wow, you're so happy. You're always grumpy. You must be in love. They may be joking, and you look at them and you say, yes, I am. Now, let's not confuse love, romantic love, with infatuation. Infatuation is when we have this intense absorption in or focus on another person. I always joke around with my students. I say infatuation makes us dumb. We overlook key factors of a person's personality. We overlook the warning signs at times if they are evident to everyone else but us. Infatuation involves a strong sexual desire, elation, general physiological arousal, and excitement, passion. Now, it can be a challenge to differentiate between infatuation and love. And what happens is, as time passes, the honeymoon phase, the infatuation phase wears off, and we develop a more realistic understanding of our feelings of attraction. Now, it's important to know infatuation is not a prerequisite for lasting mutual love. Some of us experience it, some of us don't. If we don't experience it, that does not necessarily mean we're not capable of a long-lasting relationship. It just means we just didn't experience it. And infatuation may or may not evolve to a more enduring attraction, to a more enduring relationship. It varies from individual to individual. And then we look at Steinberg's triangular theory of love. And Steinberg focuses on three key points: intimacy, passion, and commitment. When we talk about intimacy, we're talking about feelings of closeness, bondedness, connectedness, our desire to share our vulnerabilities and our innermost thoughts with another, our desire to give and to receive emotional support from our significant other. When we talk about passion, we're talking about intense romantic or sexual desire for another person, which is accompanied by physiological arousal. And then when we talk about commitment to maintain the relationship despite the existence of potential hardship. Can we overcome obstacles and allow our commitment or our love for one another to guide us along that path? I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope this lecture was helpful. And I encourage you all to fight on. Take care.